If you ever needed a reason to go to a video games convention, this is it. Only at video games conventions can you find the absolute best games on the market. Trust me.
Dreamcast! Building the Games Room! World Trips! Live Game Hunting!
Hello again folks, and welcome back to a very special game hunting episode, as this time we are live at OLL 23 Video Games Convention here in the fine city of Norwich. And one thing can be certain, when you are hunting at games conventions, you're going to be picking through the very best games there are to add to your collection. Games conventions are always the best places to find the rare, the weird and the wonderful for your collection. This is where the best sellers come, and they are selling the best stock. But one of the main things is, when it comes to conventions, you need to be there early, as the best items always sell out very quick. But don't worry, I was early doors ready for OLL 23, and trust me, I got some amazing bits for the collection this time. If you haven't seen my previous video recapping the amazing weekend that was OLL 23, please go back and check out that episode, and please reach out to some of the amazing channels that made that weekend a possibility. It was an absolutely incredible experience, and I just really want to recap it and share my experiences with the entire world. If you enjoyed this video, please hit that like button and please subscribe, as I put new videos out every Saturday live at 5, as well as bonus content throughout the week, and I really want you folks along for the ride. Now, early doors, let's get queuing for the convention. Here we go then, bright and early on the first day of OLL 23, because you have to get to these games conventions early. If you are looking for the very best games available at a convention, the early bird definitely catches the worm. And I was straight to Last Level Games' stand. They're one of my favourite local game stores, and I was straight in the box SNES games, because these are one of the things that sell very quickly at conventions, and the conventions are a great place to find some absolute gold box Nintendo cardboard goodness. And this is a game I've been looking for in really nice condition for a long while. Starwing. Yes, a very common game for the SNES, but I was looking for this in really good condition, and this was an absolutely fantastic copy of this, and for £25 it was a really good price as well. And this is the thing with games conventions, you will be able to find a lot of games you won't find other places normally, like this Simpsons game for the SNES, Krusty's Funhouse. I never see these Simpsons games complete and boxed, but places like this are where you go to find the absolute best games. So I was able to pick up 2 box complete SNES games straight off the bat. As I said, I love box Nintendo cardboard, and I really love collecting for the N64, but it's getting harder and harder to find these boxed and complete Nintendo 64 games, just because obviously Nintendo used cardboard for all their games, and over the years cardboard boxes easily get misplaced, damaged, or just wear out a lot more than kind of CD cases or DVD cases. It's just getting harder to find these. Unfortunately, I couldn't really find anything here that I kind of tickled my fancy. I was quite tempted by this copy of Mario and Yoshi. This was in really good condition, especially goes with NES games. Obviously some of these games now are over 30 years old, and they're going to get harder and harder to find in this good a condition. And it's the thing about gaming conventions, if you are looking for games in really good condition, this is probably where they're going to be. You have a much better chance of adding something absolutely awesome to your collection at a convention than you would do, say, going into CX, and trust me, there's some great things coming. As a store, Last Level Games always has an absolutely amazing selection of just about everything, and the same was here at the convention, because they had been saving some stuff back specifically for OLL 23, and trust me, you could tell there was some absolutely incredible retro here, and some bits I've never seen before, and some real rarities, such as this game right here, Chrono Trigger for the Nintendo DS. Yes, a very expensive game, but a very hard game to come by. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think this ever got a PAL release. As you can see there with the ERSB rating, this is the American version of the game. It was very tempting, because, hand on heart, I've never played through that game. So let me know in the comments down below. Am I the only one who's never played through Chrono Trigger? One of my favourite things about game collecting is you never know what you're going to come across, and I wasn't really going into OLL 23 expecting to pick up quite as many Game Boy games as I did this time. This one was very tempting. Look at how minty this copy of Jurassic Park is for the Game Boy. Yes, this had a high price tag, but this was like in absolutely pristine condition. I did pass on it today, and sadly it did sell later in the day, but it's definitely on my radar now. And I thought this was quite interesting. Wario Land, both the Mario Classics and the standard version are essentially the same price, which I thought was quite interesting. I thought it might be like PlayStation Platinum games, where the Classics versions are worth a little bit less, but no, it seems they're the same. But here's the thing, there is still quite a lot of these boxed Game Boy games that are quite affordable, like £15 for a box to complete Game Boy Advance game. I don't think it's too bad, which is really good, because, you know, sometimes you don't want to drop the kind of money that they're asking for something like Jurassic Park, so it's cool to be able to pick up some of these games for slightly cheaper. There was a really good selection here. I was very tempted by Micro Machines 1 and 2 on the Game Boy. I don't know why they're both on the same disc, but I think basically if I go back and play Micro Machines, I'm probably going to go back and play it on the Mega Drive. Obviously, with some of these Game Boy games, there is kind of the worst version on the Game Boy, but it's very cool to see some really nice box bits. It may actually surprise you that Grand Theft Auto on the Game Boy Color is actually a pretty good game. Like, obviously, remember, this is the old school GTA when it's top down, but it still, to this day, runs pretty well. It's a pretty good way to play this, but as well is quite an expensive game. My wife is a massive Simpsons fan, as I've said many times before, and she's a massive Game Boy fan. She wanted to pick up this Simpsons Treehouse of Horror game. I have no idea if this is one of the good Simpsons games. She's a Simpsons fan, a Game Boy Color fan. It was an easy pickup. I did have a quick peruse for the Xbox 360 and the OG Xbox selection, but at the end of the day, when I'm at a gaming convention, I'm looking for the more rare titles, the kind of cardboard gold from the olden days, the stuff I don't find all the time, and it's the stuff I find more often than not at car boots and kind of in CX or charity shops even. I always look for Mega CD games when I'm at a games convention. I did find 2 today, but unfortunately they are both games I already had in the collection. I just think I'm a glutton for punishment these days collecting for the Mega CD. It is just getting harder and harder to find these games, if nothing else because the cases are really, really weak, but no luck this time. But at the end of the day, video games conventions are one of the best places to find Mega CD games, but unfortunately, no luck this time. So that was Last Level Games. There was some absolutely amazing cardboard retro goodness here, including this copy of Silent Hill 2, which was pretty cheap to be fair. If you wanted to play the game and weren't so much worried about condition, it was a great opportunity. But Last Level Games has had an absolutely amazing selection of everything, and I was super happy to have picked up some amazing vintage Nintendo cardboard. Onwards and upwards to the next stall of this amazing convention. Now, if you were looking for expensive Nintendo cardboard, this next stall had you more than covered, including one of the best examples of a Nintendo NES Deluxe set boxed I have ever seen. There was so much absolutely amazing stuff on this stall. Like, yes, the prices were appropriate to the items, but this is what I mean about game convention hunting. This is where you find the absolute grail games. The games you cannot find anywhere else, and on this stall especially, everything was in absolutely amazing condition. Like that copy of Metroid on the SNES, I've never seen the small box version of that game. This game right here is one of my holy grails, and a game I've been holding out to find boxed and complete for ages. Castlevania 4 for the SNES is a game which I just really want boxed complete, but the price tag on this game is very, very high. This game is £130 I think in CX, but this is the thing, if you're buying this from CX, obviously it is a CX lottery what condition this came in, but this copy was just absolutely breathtaking. It is in one of the best conditions I've ever seen. The price was eye-watering. I'll tell you this much. Those plastic cases, they're very, very cool. The plastic cases were £15, but trust me, this copy of Castlevania 4 was a lot more than that. They did also have some much more affordable games, such as these NES Classics games. I just love the artwork on like tennis and kung fu. It's so literal. Kind of reminds me of the Master System box art back in the day as well. I'm always looking for cheap NES games just because they're getting harder and harder to find. I already have Gremlins. I did decide to pass on the other 2, sadly. This stall did have a really good selection of stuff. I love that Rob the Robot. My wife did pick up this Game Boy game which had Centipede and Millipedes. This was just a game she had growing up, and I think this was really underpriced, like 20 quid for this game in really nice condition, boxed and complete. Seemed really cheap. And let me know in the comments down below if you think this is cheap. I definitely think we should absolutely snagged a bargain here. I was very tempted to pick up this game, Primal Rage, as last time I went to a games convention in Doncaster, we were discussing this game on the way there, and I also didn't manage to find a copy of it there. Unfortunately, the box was a little bit rough when we took it out of the cartridge protector, and I think I'm going to try and hold out for the Mega Drive version of this, as I played that a lot more. But if you know, let me know in the comments down below, which is the best version of Primal Rage, the SNES version or the Mega Drive version? The next store also had this absolutely amazing collection of drinks coasters, £3 each or 4 for £10, with some of the very best video game artwork available. The problem is I was actually so overwhelmed with these I couldn't decide which 4 to pick up, and between you and me, I actually use old scratch game discs as my tea coasters. On to the next store, and we had some more boxed N64 games. Sadly, there was nothing here that I either needed or I thought was in decent condition. As I said, this is probably more common for N64 games, just to be a little bit more battered and beaten. There were some good Game Boy and Game Boy Advance games here as well, but nothing that really took my fancy or I didn't already have in the collection. And sadly, the same is true for the GameCube. This is one of the things, when you start to build a bigger selection of games, it gets harder to find games you don't own to add to your collection. Don't get me wrong, there were some really nice bits here, we had some PlayStation 4 bits, some PlayStation 2, 3 and even PSP stuff, but there was nothing that really jumped out to me, unfortunately. There was some really good bits here, but nothing I really personally needed for the collection. But that is one of the best things about gaming conventions. There is a little bit of everything, so even if you're looking for some of these more common titles, there's always something there that you can add to your collection. Especially this copy of Die Hard for the Saturn. This was in really nice condition, as again, the Saturn is another console that uses cardboard boxes. I did find one game here hiding amongst the PlayStation 1 games that I did need for my collection, and that is Star Wars Masters of Terras Cassie. And if you have not played this, it is definitely an oddity of a Star Wars game. It is like a 2D-ish beat-em-up game, kind of similar to Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter. It is a definite oddity. It is definitely a weird game, not something you really expect from the Star Wars universe, but I'm a massive Star Wars fan, and I just wanted to have this in my collection for having every Star Wars game ever completed, even though this is possibly one of the worst Star Wars games ever made. There was a lot of love for the Dreamcast at OLL 23 this year, and I do have a reasonable Dreamcast collection, but I'm always looking for games to add to the collection, especially when I can pick them up cheap, such as this game here, Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, I said earlier about Nintendo cardboard being easily damaged, but Dreamcast cases, oh my, these are so incredibly fragile. It is getting so hard to find Dreamcast games boxed and complete with decent cases, and when I do, I can pick them up for a £5. I'm definitely going to grab it for the collection. This next store had some really interesting bits, such as these hacked Pokemon games. Yes, they may not be the official cartridge, but at the end of the day, some of these Pokemon games are getting super expensive to play, so the main thing at the end of the day is playing the game. And this is another thing that emulation can be really good for. Check out these handheld NES emulators. These were super cool. They're actually really affordable as well and looked really, really nice. I like the fact they're essentially just miniature Game Boys. I really like the paint job on these. These were really cool. And to be honest, very, very tempting for my emulation needs. But for me, this is the best of both worlds. Being able to play the original software on new hardware. Being able to plug a NES or a SNES cartridge straight into one of these kind of handheld devices is absolutely incredible. I love the fact the Mega Drive handheld in the back, as you said on it, cheaper than a Nomad, which yes it is. Most things are cheaper than Nomad. These were really, really cool. It's just the fact then you could play your actual games on the go. The graphics on these were fantastic. I dread to think what the battery life was like, but yeah, I was very, very tempted by this. I think they knew I was coming. Putting Doom on the SNES one and Turtles on the NES one is definitely a very good move, and these were awesome. Another store and some more PlayStation games. Don't worry, there was some Platinum games here as well, but you'll have to wait till next week for the PlayStation Platinum Project video from OLL 23. I was very tempted to pick up this game, ODT. I don't think I ever played the full game of this. I think I only played a demo of this. I was, again, very tempted to pick it up, but I did pass. I think it was missing the manual. I think it's one of those kind of overlooked PlayStation 1 games. There were some quite cool bits on here. Again, sadly, nothing I was looking for, but there was just some really good stuff available, especially some of these big PC box games. This next store was Sega Mags, and they sell loads and loads of old video game magazines, not just Sega ones, and the first thing I grabbed instantly here was these free official PlayStation 1 magazines. I picked a couple of these up recently at the car boot, and I'm trying to match these to their demos, just trying to really recreate that amazing feeling of just sitting there reading through a PlayStation magazine and playing demos of the inverted commas new games that are coming out. And this was really affordable. Most of these issues of the magazines were £3 each. PlayStation magazine back in the day, if you don't remember, was £4.99. Yes, it didn't come with a demo, but for a magazine that's probably 20 years old, to be able to pick it up still in 2023 for £3 is an absolutely amazing deal. It's great to see this keeping the hobby alive. One of the stores here was a little bit later setting up than some of the other stores, I don't know if they arrived late or what, but they had a really good selection of retro games, really nice boxed and complete stuff, which at the end of the day is what you're looking for. I know a lot of people go for loose cartridges, but I'm normally going for complete in the box stuff. And again, they had some really good Game Boy games here, such as Donkey Kong Land 2, an absolute classic, and even the original Donkey Kong Land. I was very tempted to pick them up, but I found this copy of Zelda for just £35, which I think is an absolute steal. I couldn't believe this when I picked it up. It did look like it was sealed, like, spoiler alert, it's not fully sealed, and I think it is probably a reseal. Yes, it may have the ERSB rating, which means I think it is an American copy, but for £35, this looks like an absolute steal. But you know me, I'm always going to try and make a bit more of a deal, so let's see if we can bundle this with something else. So going through the Game Boy games here, there's nothing really I fancy. PS1 games, no, not that Game Boy game. There's been so much love for the Dreamcast this weekend. Let's try and grab another Dreamcast game because this was in good condition, it was boxed, it was complete, the box wasn't collapsing at the seams, and I managed to bundle these two games together. So I got Zelda for £35 and the person on the stall threw in that copy of F1 World Grand Prix 2. Two games for £35, great deal. We all make mistakes when out games hunting, and especially at conventions when it's super busy. And my biggest mistake this weekend was not picking up this copy of Mario Soccer for the GameCube for just £20. I was like, is that a good price? Is it not? Yes, it is. This game sells for £35 in CX. This copy was in absolutely fantastic condition. It was complete in the box. Definitely should have picked this up, but at the end of the day, you can't pick up everything you see. I do see this one fairly often, so next time I see it, I'll definitely add it to my GameCube collection. But here is something no one can pass up. Game Boy Advance games for £1. But even for £1, I won't pick up the Who Wants to Be a Millionaire game. But 2 wrestling games for the Game Boy Advance for just £2. It just goes to show, even at games conventions, you can still get an incredible deal. And as a wrestling fan, this made me very, very happy. Best £2 of the weekend. Also, as a wrestling fan, yes, I was very, very tempted by these belts on the same store. I just don't know which one of these I'd go for if I went for a belt. I think it'd have to be the old school Big Eagle belt from the early 2000s. That was definitely, in my eyes, the best wrestling title of all time. But let me know in the comments down below, what was the best wrestling title of all time in your humble opinion? If you saw my previous OLL 23 video, you will know there was tons of amazing YouTubers at this convention. And one of the best stalls was John Riggs' store, as he was selling loads of his homebrew NES games, including one of the funniest games I think I've ever seen, COVID-19, the game for the NES. Now, I wanted to take away a real-like memento of my time at OLL 23, and what better thing is there to take away than a game by one of the most influential YouTubers of all time. And yeah, there was only one game for me to take home as a memory this weekend. Is COVID-19 a game? I'm very intrigued.
Well, you know, it's a hack of a game called Route 16. Route 16 is an early Famicom game. And Route 16, it's a maze game. You are card collecting flags. And this one, you're a shopping cart collecting flag game.
Based on that description alone, there was no way I could leave this game behind. But the most important thing to take away from this is not just John Riggs, but so many people are still developing for these older consoles. Like, the amount of love I saw for the Dreamcast this weekend was absolutely insane. This is what it's all about. Sometimes we just look forward to the brand new consoles, the PS5s, the new Xboxes. You can still go back and develop for some of these old systems. And it's just amazing to see this alive and well in 2023. And dare I say, thriving. There was so many new retro games at this convention this weekend, but for me, these were some of my favourites. Just to see them in the original plastic. I loved the clear plastic. I loved how the fact most of them had boxes. It was just really, really cool. And yeah, this is definitely an amazing thing to take home from my time at OLL 23. Now, this probably would have been my pickup of the entire weekend, but last minute I stumbled across a once-in-a-lifetime item. I could not believe my luck when I stumbled across these X-Shop Display Nintendo signs right at the end of the convention. This was in the last hour or so. I don't know if they'd just been put out, if everyone had passed them by the entire weekend, but there was no way I was passing these up. I can still remember seeing these like slid into the top of shop displays back in the day. For £8 each, I was leaving no man behind. I was having all of these. These are a once-in-a-lifetime find. So there we have it. That was my live Game Hunter OLL 23. There was so much to see, and I had to cut some of this down just because I know this video is getting super long. There was so much amazing stuff, including stuff like these pin badges. These were all incredible. But just trust me, trust me. If you weren't there this year, make sure you get to OLL 24. It is more than just buying video games. It is more than just playing video games. It is just all about the experience. It's added so much knowledge to myself, and it's just given me such much more of a fire inside about the collecting hobby and just video games in general and the retro gaming community, because that's what this is all about. It was all about community, getting together and playing the game. Now, back to the games room. What an amazing weekend that was. It was not a surprise. I knew it was going to be fantastic, but I am still blown away by how incredible that entire weekend was. And even better, I've added some amazing bits to the collection to remind me of how amazing OLL 23 was. First up, we have not one, but two Game Boy Advance games, and even better, two wrestling Game Boy Advance games. And it just goes to prove video game hunting at games conventions doesn't have to be expensive. Both of these games were just £1 each. I don't know how they were still there. Like, if I see a Game Boy Advance game, I'm going to pick it up if it's £1, especially if it's a wrestling game. So I picked up WWE Survivor Series and WWF Road to WrestleMania. Now, the Game Boy Advance may not be my personal favourite way to play wrestling games, but as a wrestling game collector and a completionist, these are two I definitely needed in my collection. So we all know I am a massive wrestling fan, but I am also a massive Star Wars fan, and of course a massive PlayStation 1 fan. So I said the games convention is the best place to get the best games, but it turns out it's also the best place to get some of the worst games, such as this game, Masters of Terras Cassie Star Wars the Beat 'em Up. This is one of the weirdest Star Wars games I think ever made, and on paper it's a fantastic idea. Take some of your favourite Star Wars characters and let them fight in like a 2D kind of beat 'em up, you know, like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat. This was going to be the Star Wars version. Unfortunately, it is infamously bad. It is a pretty terrible game, but as a PlayStation 1 fan and a Star Wars fan, I've been looking for this one for quite a long while. So when I saw it for just £10, I thought, you know what, I'll add it to my collection. If for nothing else, to go back and play a couple of fights as Boba Fett and just kill some Rebel scum. Speaking of the PlayStation, if you saw one of my more recent videos, I went to the car boot and got some of the official PlayStation magazines. Now, I loved these so much back in the day, picking these up, playing for the demos, seeing all the games that were coming out. This was the way I learned about all my PlayStation news back in the day. And at OLL 23, when I saw the Sega mag stand, I saw they had loads of these official PlayStation magazines for just £3 each. When considering they were £5 when it first came off, I thought was an absolute bargain. Now, the problem is you don't have the demos with them. So if you have the demos for any of these magazines, please let me know in the comments down below, as I'd love to reunite these and make a full set. These were all £3 each. So our first cover here is V-Rally 2. Not the most exciting one, but also Shadow Man, which was an absolute hidden gem if you haven't played it. A really creepy game. Secondly, we have The World Is Not Enough, the game that every PlayStation fan was going to come along and beat GoldenEye, and unfortunately it didn't. Also SmackDown 2, and just a very small thing there, Gran Turismo 3 and Silent Hill 2. It's amazing when the cover start is The World Is Not Enough, when you have Gran Turismo 3 and Silent Hill 2, some of the best games of all time. And finally, from some of the best games of all time to one of the worst games of all time, The Simpsons Wrestling. I'm a massive wrestling fan, my wife is a massive Simpsons fan, so we wanted this one for our comic collection. And this is what it's all about, reuniting those demo discs with the magazine they originally came from. But let me know if you have any of the demo discs that I'm missing from my magazines. Please reach out. I'm more than happy to pay for these demo discs, add them to the magazine and make them complete again, because they just hold such amazing memories for myself. One of the main things I've taken away from OLL 23 is how much people absolutely love the Dreamcast. I never knew it was such a popular console. Obviously I knew people collected for it, but the Dreamcast fanbase is super hardcore, so I wanted to buy at least a couple of Dreamcast games when I was there, but herein lies the problem. Finding Dreamcast games complete in good condition with the box is not broken is getting harder and harder. So when I found both of these games separately for just £5 each, I knew I had to pick them up. So first up we have Ultimate Fighting Championship. This was actually the first thing I ever experienced of UFC, was playing this back on the day on the original Xbox. It may not be the most exciting title for the Dreamcast, but for £5 for a boxed and complete game in 2023, I'm happy to add it into the collection. Secondly, we have F1 World Grand Prix 2. I originally played this game back on the N64, so we see quite interesting how it compares on the Sega Dreamcast. Again, this was just £5. Not one of the most exciting games of all time, but as I said, as Dreamcast games get harder and harder to pick up, especially in good condition, beggars can't be choosers. One of the biggest surprises for myself about OLL 23 is that I've discovered a new love for collecting boxed Game Boy games. You know, Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance, you name it. I just decided I suddenly love it. And this was a game that my wife bought that had real memories of when she was growing up. It is the Centipede and Millipede double pack. This is in really nice condition. This was £20, which going off CX and eBay prices is a real bargain. But the thing is, you can't really put a price on memories. She enjoyed playing this one growing up. I think I had the Asteroids and Missile Command version of this, and it's definitely next on my list to pick up. If you remember earlier in the episode, I said my wife was a massive Simpsons fan, and that's why she had to pick up this game. The Simpsons Night of the Living Treehouse Horror. This is just one of the many Simpsons games that I've never played. And this is the first game we picked up from Last Level Games, one of my favourite local game stores here in the fine city of Norwich. And I just love the artwork on this. Like, 90s Simpsons was absolutely peak. I have no idea how this game plays, but hopefully it's one of the better Simpsons titles, as everyone knows there's some terrible Simpsons games out there. As soon as I saw this game on a table, I knew I had to pick it up, as this just seemed too good to be true. It seemed very cheap. £35 for this, a copy of The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, and includes multiplayer adventure 4 Swords. And I don't know if this is a genuine seal. It has been opened at the top. This game sadly is not sealed. I think it is a reseal as I look down the middle, but this is in absolutely incredible condition. But I know it has got the E for everyone, so I don't know if that does mean this is an American copy, but just look at the condition of this. Like, boxed cardboard Zelda games are getting harder and harder to find, and this is in absolutely incredible condition. And for 35 quid, I would have been a fool to pass this one up. We're down to our last two pickups. If it wasn't for my last pickup, this game in my hand would have been my favourite pickup of OLL 23, because only I could go to OLL 23 and say I got COVID-19 the game. That's right, COVID-19 the game for the NES. This is a game that was made by John Riggs. It's actually a hack of an old Famicom game, and he just gave it kind of a hack and made it into a game about COVID-19, where you go around a supermarket trying to collect toilet roll, and if nothing else, it is an absolutely fantastic conversation piece. It is just one of those things. I have a slightly dark sense of humour. I wanted something to remember OLL 23 by, and trust me, this will look amazing on my shelf, will create amazing conversation, and if nothing else, will make me laugh every time I look at it. We are down to our final pickup, and this right here is why you need to be game hunting at conventions. This is something normally that money cannot buy. This is one of those things you do not see every day. This is official Nintendo stock. These are ex-shop display signs. These were £8 each. I got a deal of all three of these signs for just £20, and seriously, it may need a bit of cleaning up, but look at these. This would have slid in the top of a shop display with your Nintendo games, and I just think on my Nintendo shelf, these are going to look absolutely incredible on the shelves. As I said, I have 3 of these and they are just absolutely beautiful. Just that, with some boxed N64 or SNES games behind it, it's going to be a thing of absolute beauty. And the thing is, these are original things made by Nintendo. These are the ones you would have seen back in the stores. These are the kind of nostalgic money can't buy items that I love finding, and there's no better place to find them than games conventions. There we have it then, folks. That was the OLL 23 Games Convention live game hunt. It was absolutely incredible. I've added not just some amazing items to my collection, but some amazing memories. Just meeting so many YouTubers, viewers of the channel, content creators, game developers, just everything. It's just everything I love about the retro and modern gaming community. It is just that. It is a community. It is about networking, teaching each other, learning from each other, and just building amazing memories. OLL 23 was everything I love about the game community, and I cannot say this enough. If you get a chance, not just to go to OLL 24, to any games convention, just do it. They are absolutely amazing, and they are why I love video game collecting. There we have it then, folks. That's the end of this week's live game hunting episode, and what an amazing place it was to game hunt. But let me know in the comments down below, what game conventions have you been to and which ones would you recommend to the viewers out there? I really want to get out there and get to more games conventions, as if today, if anything is go by, this is where you get the best items. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit that like button, subscribe, and as always, keep playing the game. See y'all soon.